going? I'm so happy you're here. Thanks for joining us for the fifth, believe it or not, IRiS Alloy Discussion Series event. I'm Dave Morehouse, the director for the Institute for Research and Sensing, which is an interdisciplinary research institute at the University of Cincinnati that just began this past fall. We're interested in everything related to sensing, perception, sensor technology development, including ethics, the legal side of things, as well as how those integrate with the fine performing arts, the humanities, and the social sciences. So unlike many research initiatives at the University of Cincinnati that focus on science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, we have a very strong commitment to integrating those with non-STEM perspectives, like the humanities, the social sciences, and the fine performing arts. And hopefully that's been captured. Yay! We think it does something totally different. It not only deepens and enriches our perspective, but really points us in new directions that I think are worth paying attention to. So hopefully some of that's been on display already, and more of it will be on display tonight. I do need to mention how IRiS is possible. It's possible through the support, a number of lines of support. The first is through the Office of Research at the University of Cincinnati through their Research2030 initiative, with matching support from the College of Arts and Sciences, as well as the College of Engineering and Applied Sciences. We're also supported in part through external partnerships, and so those include the Environmental Protection Agency. It's getting loud. The National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, Kroger, and Procter Gamble. So they all are members of the Institute for Research and Sensing and help us to be able to do these kinds of events. So we'd like to thank them. I also wanted to mention the Alloy series, which I know there are repeat offenders here in the audience that have come to a number of these. We're doing 8 of these a year. We're on our 5th. We'll do another one April 21st at the Harriet Beecher Stowe House on ethical frontiers in sensing. One of the things we're trying to do with these is to introduce people to places in Cincinnati that they haven't been before. So how many people have been here to Wave Pool before? 1, 2. You're an artist in residency. So we do these things at the Swing House. We've done them at the American Sign Museum. We're trying to introduce people to, or maybe help people to fall in love with Cincinnati. Cincinnati's got a number of really incredible things going for it. Amongst them are these amazing groups of people working to serve neighborhoods like this community-oriented art center. So anyway, keep an eye out for those. We'll do 2 in the summer months. Hopefully those will be outside. We have such beautiful summer weather here that we're going to try to do them outside. We don't just do these kinds of events. A couple of things that some of you might be interested in upcoming. April 7th and 8th, we have a working group working on machine learning and artificial intelligence and new kind of philosophical, ethical, and legal frontiers. What can we sense and what should we sense with these new techniques or these new approaches? There is the opportunity to sign up for an actual working group workshop in the mornings if that's something that's in your area of interest or expertise. But if you're just curious about it, there are afternoon talks. We're flying in 8 experts from around the country, actually around the world, that they could couple of international to be with us the 8th of April. Those are free public lectures you can join if you're curious about bringing yourself up to speed about that. And then the last thing, an annual showcase and festival called IRiS Ignite, which is going to be not only science, technology, and engineering presentations and posters, but also artist performances, etc. That will be on UC campus in the Tangeman University complex, and May 25th and 26th. So lots of events like that. If you're curious about this, just search IRiS UC, and you'll find your way to our website. You can get onto our mailing lists. There's going to be a ton of really cool stuff happening in the coming years. So please join us for more here. I don't see Jordan yet. So Jordan's going to come over. Jordan will tell us a little bit more about Wave Pool and their project, the Welcome Project, in a minute. But before that happens, we have the privilege of hearing some poetry from Ashley-Devon Williamston here with us today. Ashley-Devon is an anthropologist, and they are also a current artist in residence here at Wave Pool, and they are going to read us some poems about food. So without further ado, let's welcome Ashley-Devon.
the curtain that's up here. So hello everyone. As was stated, I'm Ashley-Devon Williamston. I am very interested in ideas of control and masters of the universe and the ways that we can experience the universe through a number of ways, and food is one of them. So I'm going to read you 4 poems today. 2 were written by myself, 2 were written by other people, and I'm going to kick us off with a poem called What Does God Taste Like by Nathan Backen. To be alone in the sacred, to allow the nondescript sound of the holy to flood your ears. She sounds like Cher, like family, like the bitter sting of vinegar on the tongue. The senses confused. Touch becomes taste, becomes sound, becomes smell, becomes sight, becomes touch, becomes body, becomes bread, becomes blood, becomes wine, becomes body. Eucharistic transition on the tip of a tongue, sharp, astringent, knowable, a different kind of miracle, becoming. This next poem, while we're thinking about gods, I feel like I've tasted God because I create the universe through the meals that I make. And this is a poem that I wrote called Left to Feast Upon the Fruits of My Own Labor. I am a messy eater. I love beholding that which has been carefully assembled and set before me, only to rip it apart, only to have it sprawling across my plate, begging to be made sense of once more. I admire the chaos. I admire myself for transforming the chaos into order. See, you thought the task was already completed, but you aren't very good at your craft, and I am left to bear this burden. I must be the one to grapple and strain and ponder and calculate. I must design this masterpiece. Now this is good. This is a symphony. This is what I came for. Now I can eat. I wrote that poem when I think about all the times that I used to rearrange my food for too long when I was a kid and my mom would get annoyed at me. And it's okay to laugh at poetry because it's just people having fun. It's not super serious. Sometimes my poems aren't. This next poem is called Heat by Gabby Benitez. I grew up learning how to cook on a gas stove. My dad flipping tortillas on the open flame with bare hands, charring them just the tiniest bit, but never letting them catch fire. A good memory in a sea of bad, in a sea of unforgivable. Grew up learning to eat food that was fire in my belly, fire in my mouth, on my tongue. Learning that peppers would be my salvation one way or the other. Habanero, serrano, jalapeno, poblano could cleanse me of sin and sickness, toxin and parasite. Grew up learning that the things I wanted to put and hold in my body were not for everyone. And for a while, I did forget that the fire I craved was my own, was endlessly good. That spice was my religion. That the peppers are sweeter the longer you leave them on the burner, in the pan, in the oven. That the key to good food is patience. 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 That the key to loving someone is patience. 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 Learning that it can be almost unbearable to wait, to let the flesh simmer in its own flavor. But that's when you get the juice, the texture, the taste. Just add some heat and you hardly need much else. The fruit tastes oh so good on its own, drenched and sweltering in its own sweet. The salt you need simply that of sweat, of blood, of tears, of joy and heartbreak. There is no greater comfort food. And I grew up learning that if I burn my hands trying to get them out of the coals, as I do time and time again, trying to flip them in the pan, trying to take them out the oven. If I burn my tongue in eagerness for that first taste, the pain is welcome, will be welcome. A reminder of excitement, of hard work, of being alive enough to feel, and to learn, and to know that what tastes good and nourishes me may also sting, scald, scorch. Sometimes, if I move too quick, if I'm not careful, if I'm not patient, if I don't remember to take my time, and if I don't remember to slow down, to savor and swim in all of it. Be still, my love. Be calm. Now I've got one more poem for you. This is a poem I wrote very recently, and it'll actually be featured in the next volume of Dinner Bell. Dinner Magazine is a really cool mag. I think the publishers are in Michigan now, but I have a lot of friends that are in series of Dinner Bell, and the third one's coming up, and you can see this poem in that one. This poem is technically a soup recipe. Click, snip, snap. The ASMR of the kitchen hums a tune for my subconscious as I take my pick in the gift shop of my fridge. I'm a bit hazy. It helps with the process, is what I tell myself. Perhaps a lie, because I am currently a terrible assembly line worker. No graceful dances will be performed today. Instead, I exhume homemade broth and roasted chicken from the freezer. Salvage softening kale from the veggie crisper. Artifacts of a time when I was an allegedly better person, preserved for a future me that I knew would be too bougie to eat fast food, but too stoned to capital C cook. Garlic and onion powder are better than fresh because right now I'm working smarter, not harder. Same goes for the oregano. Using the can opener on the white beans is enough to make me feel like I worked for this. A freshly sliced lemon to squeeze into the pot says that this is still art. I tinker until the very real but heavily oversighted voices of my ancestors tell me that it's perfect. I'm a joke that they're using, yet entertaining still. I can't tell if they're proud of me, and I don't really have time to file because I have to find the perfect show to stream before. I should have found one before I served myself. Some mistakes are not consequential to bother learning from. So, thank you.
Absolutely wonderful. And Ashley-Devon's going to join us in conversation too. So before I introduce other invited conversationalists, I want to introduce Jordan Huss. Jordan is the director of the Welcome Project. And she's going to tell us a little bit about where you are, because I think only 2 people raised their hands as having ever been here before. So you have a completely naive audience. You can tell them that this is whatever you want.
Well, I won't tell you whatever you want.
like this week alone, I had somebody contact me, and in June, we're doing a, someone made grass bioplastic into sculptures. So we're gonna be doing an install in our community garden down the street, just because they have the idea. We wanna be able to facilitate those things to bring community together at Wave Pool. So that's across the spectrum. We have exhibitions and artist residencies. You'll get, I think if you're getting an example of that tonight. Stephanie has an exhibition coming up, opening April 9th. If you didn't get to taste food that she made tonight, you'll be tasting a lot more of it for 3 whole months. Ashley-Devon currently has a project going on with us as well right now, and it's an artist in residence. That's the program, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, that's what I thought. I'm not a Wave Pool. I'm trying to just welcome artists, which is a totally different beast. And then the other individual, Rachel Rampleman's downstairs right now, but she's one of our artists in residence doing an exhibition in the gallery, Life is Drag. You'll see some performances later, but we across the spectrum deal with community-driven matters and try and convey those in a really artful, beautiful way with the community around us. Welcome Project, where I come into play, is we've been doing very much community and food-driven and also contemporary art driven, the same model, but for an audience in Cincinnati and immigrant audience in Cincinnati and those refugee communities. So if anyone has any ideas or wants to attend an event or even just volunteer, let me know. We're always looking for cool people who have wonderful ideas to join us and hang out.
Yeah.
Being in our space tonight. This is one of many, I guess I should say, what we have on campus before I walk away. We have a wood shop with tons of woodworking classes and Saturday for ceramics classes. We have kids classes at, when I say there's a lot going on, there's always a lot going on. We have kids classes every Saturday at Drip Coffee, called Drip and Draw. We also have both galleries open for exhibitions constantly rotating throughout the year. This is a community space that people can use for meetings or whatever you need, just let us know. And the same thing over at Welcome. We have a wood-fired pizza oven in the back patio. We have the art gallery. We also have that community space that you were welcomed into as well. So just keep those imaginations turning and reach out.
And this is an example of what happens when you call up Jordan, like, hey, I want to do, and she's like, well, let me connect you to Ashley-Devon, and let me talk to Rachel Rampleman. It just becomes so much more than what you even thought you would have coming in. So this has been delightful. I can totally vouch for working with Jordan and Cal Cullen, who runs Wave Pool. So, yeah.
I help more people from the burlesque troupe. I'm going to get them some drinks and some food, and I'll be back.
Sounds good. Thanks, Jordan. All right. So now I get to introduce the people that we've invited here tonight to chat with us. And I'm going to start with Maddie here. Maddie Colston is a sommelier and winemaker and DJ, amongst many other things. He writes a wine column called Stained Glass at barrier.com. Spent a lot of time in Chicago, in the restaurant scene in Chicago. We're lucky enough to have attracted him back to Cincinnati, where he's doing all sorts of interesting stuff. So it'll be fun to chat with Maddie. Let's see, we have Stephanie Gonzalez, who we heard just a little bit about. But Stephanie's a chef, originally from LA, yeah, here in Cincinnati. She's working as a sous chef, but also doing her own catering. She's going to be a welcome artist in residence in April, and your residency is called Fried Green Tomatillo. Yeah, there's all sorts of really cool events that are associated with that. So get on their mailing list here, because I'm totally showing up to a bunch of those. And can we all thank Stephanie for the delicious small bites that she provided? Yeah, super good. So yeah, that's Stephanie, and you've already met Ashley-Devon. And so next over here is Paula Shear. Paula is a psychologist, head of the Department of Psychology at the University of Cincinnati. And her personal research, or her research program, focuses on the neuropsychological effects of neuropsychiatric disorders, which sometimes involve taste and smell, loss thereof, or disorders thereof. So it'll be really fun to hear her perspectives. And the last person that we've invited here today is Heather Duncan, who's right here to my right. And Heather is in the College of Medicine. She's in the Division of Nephrology. She's a clinical researcher, and she was the past director of the UC Taste and Smell Center. Many years ago, actually, she's moved into nephrology based on collaboration she had at the time. And she's like, no, I haven't been the director in a really long time. And I was like, I still want you to come join us, because she at one time was really focused on that and now is doing other interesting things. And so she'll bring a clinical perspective perhaps to this, and that'll be really fun. I'm also really excited to be the moderator tonight because for those of you that don't know, my research is focused on how animals sense the world. My lab, they see the world, including how they see color and motion and depth. My PhD student here, Dennis Gorman, is studying how jumping spiders see depth, which is really cool. But I'm also, in a past life, I was a sommelier. And I'm also a synesthete. So tastes and smells have a very strong color percept for me inside as part of how I cook, is I cook with color palettes in my head. Kind of hidden world that I didn't realize for a long time I didn't share with others. So anyway, this will be really fun. For those that haven't been to one of these before, you're not supposed to be a passive audience. You're actually supposed to participate. So I've got a prompt to get us moving in the center, but I want you to raise your hand, chime in, I'll call on you. We're actually live streaming this through Twitter and YouTube. Thanks to Ryan White over there, who's manning things. And so we may get some input from people online that are watching this, but if you found this to be really insightful and you want to go back and hear something again, or you want to recommend that friends check this out, feel free to go check this out on our Twitter account or our YouTube account. That's a way of archiving these conversations too. All right, so I'm going to sit down at this point in time and start with our prompt. And I did not give Ashley-Devon or Stephanie a chance to think about this, so I'm going to start with Heather and work our way around. I just want each of you to get us started to describe a taste or a smell that brings you back to childhood.
Well, I thought about two things, kind of three. I'm very fond of the smell of cigars and pipes, which are rather rare these days, and they remind me of my father. But I think a smell that really makes me have an experience that is a memory of childhood is fresh eucalyptus. My grandmother lived in the forests near the Bay of San Francisco, and her home was surrounded by eucalyptus trees. So when I smell that, it's not the typical dried eucalyptus you can get around here. It's not my shampoo, although I really wish it was. I feel like I'm in the woods in a way. The rustling sound and the movement of the leaves and the very strong smell.
Yeah, so it's a visual memory.
It's a combination.
Yeah, it's well, kind of a body or being in your body. Yeah. Oh, those are wonderful. I know exactly both of those smells. Although I don't know which pipe tobacco are. The pipe tobaccos are also very different.
They are. I certainly don't remember which ones, but I liked them all.
Yeah, wonderful. Paul, what about you?
Yes, I can smell pipe tobacco now. Because my dad used to sneak one every now and then. So I wanted to apologize to the group that I have a cough that comes up sometimes. I've taken 1,000 COVID tests. I promise it's not COVID. So I'm taking my mask off despite. So I also had two ideas. So you said childhood, and at first I couldn't think of childhood ones. And so when I was in graduate school, I was buying this really cheap shampoo because I had no money, and it had a coconut scent. And still, every time I smell coconut shampoo, it takes me straight to graduate school in my mind. And it's funny because I was in San Diego, and they have eucalyptus trees at UCSD, and that didn't do it like the coconut shampoo for some reason, but I can smell it when you describe it. And then my second one is childhood, and that's that I did a lot of gymnastics growing up because I'm short, and so you have to do something short related, and so I did gymnastics, and we used a lot of chalk on our hands so that we wouldn't rip them to shreds on bars and stuff. And so when I smell like chalk dust, it takes me to the gym.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, and chalk's got it has a smell to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. Did your fingers tingle a little bit? Do you, like,
Yeah, I'm feeling it, yeah.
Great. Yeah, no, and I actually really like that cheap shampoo coconut smell. I'm a sucker for that. Ashley-Devon.
Yeah, so the first two that I can pretty immediately think of are just connected to the South. I was born in Cincinnati, but I was raised in Atlanta, Georgia, which is why I have a Southern but not accent. The first one is fresh cracked pecans because when we lived in Cincinnati, when I was a young kid, my grandma would send us a bunch of pecans, and I would just sit there and like crack them open and just eat them. They're very tedious to open, and so you just are like a little squirrel like hovering over them. And then once I was actually living in Georgia, it was just on with the pecans. And butter pecan was my favorite ice cream flavor for a while, but I think I finally like drove it into the ground. And then like a similar like earthy rock, I guess, minerally sort of smell. Red dirt for sure has its own smell, and the clay, and they're like, the anthills are huge in the South, like specifically in Georgia, like the fire ants that live in red dirt make like huge, like as high as this table and as long. The anthills are that high. We used to stick hoses in them and blow them up. Which is a terrible idea, and you just get ants on you. But
that'll bring that red dirt smell right out.
Yeah, well, that's the smell that goes with it. So, yeah, those are my childhoods.
I love it.
Not just ants, but fire ants, right?
Yeah.
Well, they picked the fight first, right?
I didn't blow up their homes. So.
Yeah. Stephanie, what about you?
Man, there are so many smells that whenever I go to the market or go to like Philly market and I pass by like the fresh produce, I immediately think of and like always get the smell of limes, like fresh limes. And I'm not sure what the English word is for yerba buena. It's like I want to say
type of mint.
Mint. It's like mint.
It's
mint.
like it's from
yerba mate.
Cuba, the islands, but
Yes.
I know it's a minty thing, and that was
Yes.
the original name for San Francisco, right?
Yes. So lime and mint. Growing up, my grandmother had a tree in her backyard. In LA, it was just year round. And she would always ask me to go to the back whenever me and my cousins were being a little too loud inside the house, and she was cooking, to go to the back and pick some limes. And we would just, like, we were just kids, we would grab our shoes, grab rocks, and throw it at the tree because we were so short. We grab limes, and we would just grab a bunch of limes and then bring them into her, and she would just use them for everything, sauces, soups, different things like that. And now whenever I look at limes or just pass by them and I have that like tart smell, and they're very similar to lemons, but they're more tart, like Granny Smith apples. So like it's just a very distinct smell. And again, when we were acting like crazy, she would ask us to go get mint, because mint always like grows so much. If you plant it, it takes over like your whole garden.
Basically,
Yeah. So, she would ask us to just bring her some, and she would always make a large pot of just mint tea. All the neighbors would come, and the senoras would come and just sit afternoon tea. So whenever I smell mint, I always get the feeling of like, man, she's still here with me. Yeah, which is nice.
So one of the wines that I made in 2020, I made my first wine in 2018 from a vineyard called Momtazi Vineyard. It's a really unique, special vineyard that I was introduced to many years ago when I was a sommelier in Chicago. And when I got to visit there with my friend Kelly Fox, I couldn't believe it. It looks like Jurassic Park. It's like this like just sprawling, huge environment that's like very contained by its own sort of like hills and valleys, and it's farmed by an Iranian immigrant, Momtazi, sort of biodynamically farmed. It's its own sort of like unique set, but it produces really savory wines. They make their own wines there, but there's other winemakers that are lucky enough to use the fruit that they all sell. And I in my experience, getting to know them, they in order to make my first wine in 2018, I was really stoked to be able to use the fruit from there to make my Pinot Gris maceration style. Pinot Gris, also known as the same thing as Pinot Grigio. In northern Italy, there's a style of wine called Ramato, which is essentially a skin macerated Pinot Grigio. Ramato translates to copper. And it's a really small area, like right next to Slovenia, that make these very savory Pinot Gris. So when I made my first wine in 2018, and starting my wine label, I named my wine label my last name, Colston, but Biblio, as in a shortened word of bibliography. And starting my journey of leaving the restaurant business after 20 years, wanting to do more and more things and creating my future bibliography as it happens. So as the story goes, in 2020, everyone in 2018 thought my wine was called Biblio. And everyone's like, oh, I love your Biblio. I'm like, no, it's not called that. I totally understood, because it just said Colston and then Biblio on the first wine label. And as frustrating as that was, it made some sense, because that was like the first item in my catalog of a future library of things that I do, not just wines, but art, events, music, design, things like that. So in 2020, I was like, all right, I gotta name this sucker. Like, it's just people gotta relate with it, and then I can continue to make it year in, year out. And so my fruit came in, and I was de-stemming it through this machine, and like the smells were starting to really pick up and fill up the winery. And I started to get that sort of sense of like those savory things. And it really just flew into my mind. Tomato Ramato. I grew up like gardening with my mom and making this like chili sauce that was like my great grandmother's recipe. It's like not spicy, it's very, very sweet and savory, deeply, deeply savory. Lots of peppers and onions, very oniony, but like still has like the herbs and tomatoes that we grew. Over the years, I've like thrown an herb and tomatoes festival out of my backyard in Chicago. I have a tattoo of a cherry purple tomato right on my arm. And to this day, one of my favorite smells in the whole world is not tomatoes, but the tomato vine. And to rub it between my fingers, it is one of the strongest smells. And you, as a person that senses colors with that, I mean, and from what I understand, it's actually not good for the plant. So, but that smell, I can't resist just rubbing it between my fingers. It's such a strong smell. So I'll actually pass it around. I brought a bottle with me. It's called Tomato Ramato. It was designed by John Flannery of Cryptogram here in Cincinnati. I work closely with him and doing a lot of different things, and other designers too. But yeah, it's kind of a fun little thing to help sort of like, a lot of my like own experience is kind of locked into not just the name, but just like what clicks in people's minds and creating the like memories. And there's so much that more I could say, but it's all like in the bottle. And then like, they're kind of Easter eggs for other people to sort of figure out if they choose to go down the path of like understanding the vineyard or my story. So.
Yeah. No, what a fantastic story. Yeah, go ahead. Out the gate.
I have three smells. I'm going to go very quickly. Three smells, too pleasant or no, two unpleasant, one pleasant. One, I would say the first one, I'll start with the next one, is yellow, because they were like a wild bush in my backyard, and so like a summer breeze would come through, and so that would the
And there's no smell in the world like lilac, so if you know it, then yeah.
I love it so much. The other one is the second two are kind of feet related. One is sauerkraut, and that was a smell that my mom would make, and she'd cook it for so long, and it was just the kind of thing that I'd be like up in my room doing something else, and it took several years until, one day I started to appreciate the smell and look forward to what was going to come after. So it was a very interesting, I think, transition from appreciating that sweet and knowing that it was going to taste delicious. And then the other one, I was kind of reminded of your story about chalk. It was not necessarily about chalk in school, but sometimes being able to take those giant erasers, the chalk erasers that were kind of soft and squishy, and take them to the room where you got to clean them and run them through that. And it was covered with yellow chalk dust, and you could just bang them together. And that also smelled to me a little bit like skin flakes from a foot. But I really liked it. I really liked that.
So great. Yeah, I could totally remember getting hit by the chalk, the eraser, right? I had a particular teacher that would throw them at you, and if you were snoozing and not paying attention, which I was sometimes doing. So yeah, I remember being surrounded by that smell. I've got a couple. One is Play-Doh.
Yes.
I love the taste of Play-Doh. Not to eat Play-Doh, and if you've ever eaten Play-Doh, you'll never forget the flavor. And the other, and that actually has got the same smell in a way that it doesn't taste. There's no surprise there, right? But another one, which is a kind of a surprise, is so I was like the little kid that got the cherry chapstick or whatever, and oh man, it smelled like it was going to taste delicious. And then you bite into it, and it's worse than tasting like nothing, right? And I think I tried every flavor of chapstick. I'm a slow experiential learner.
I was going to say, we have treatments for this.
We may have to talk later. Yeah, Julia.
That's a distinctive smell.
Wax, yeah.
It's interesting what.
The other one I wanted to ask about was, what about that snow when the rain just starts to fall on the tarmac?
I know that.
Yeah, it's raining because you can smell it. How do you feel going?
But places smell so differently in the rain. So I remember in Arizona, the rain brings forward this creosote smell, really distinctive creosote, tarry note. Whereas the woods in the Northeast bring up a different smell. And I learned that the smell that comes up with rain in many of these environments is the bacterial community beginning to munch on stuff. The populations of bacteria and fungi just explode with the rain. And that's the smell that you associate. Which is kind of neat, like this little community that just explodes momentarily and then subsides when it dries out again. Yeah.
I was just going to make a comment about the Play-Doh. One of the studies that we did many years ago was developing a test that could evaluate whether children can smell. When we do a smell identification test with adults, you give them a list of word choices and they have to pick one. It's a little bit of a biased test, but that's the way it is. And those are in a jar that you can't see the components, and you just take a whiff and then choose a name. But of course, kids aren't going to be able to do the names very well, or read perhaps. So we used pictures, and we had a whole arrangement of pictures of things that they would commonly come in contact with. But one of the most identifiable odors for the kids was Play-Doh. That was one of the things. And
Not a
the,
formula they could change,
That's
you know, right? Like a signature smell and taste.
I'm sure that's intentional too.
Right.
yeah, probably so.
You know, I was just thinking about the smell identification test too, as people were talking. So a long time ago, I used to do research in olfaction with patient population, people with neurologic problems. And one of the challenges, I know you're well aware of this, is that it's hard to develop smell tests because people are actually extremely poor at naming smells. Yes. Like if you just give us just the sensory information, people are absolutely horrible at putting the labels with it. And so as everyone was talking, I was just really struck by how rich my sensory experience was when what everyone was describing, and I was salivating during your poems, but it felt like everyone in the room really resonated to the sense we were describing. Yet, if we were to try to test it in a laboratory and we were to give you a jar with any of the scents that we talked about, we'd be awful at naming them. Awful.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting.
Which is why
contrast,
you give them the choices
Yeah.
of things to identify. And the kids were the same way. So.
Because in almost all of the descriptions, there were other sensory modalities described. You know, I mean, when you were talking about the tomato vine, I could, it's got a tarry kind of hairiness
It doesn't
to
smell
it.
like fruit or vegetable.
And
It is
the smell was linked to the like physical feeling. Yeah.
It's like the hairiness.
chalk too. Chalk makes my whole body shiver. I feel right with chalk. It's like you were describing it. And what's funny too is there's things like that translated wine too, Lake Doyle, Sancerre, which is a small region in France, and people like Sancerre for being a region that grows Sauvignon Blanc, but as we know with French wine labels, it talks about the place, and it is like white chalk, and there's a region in Jerez in Spain where it's just the Albarita soils are just, you can write on it, but like when you're there and you pick it up and you're just like, you just have to taste it. And like, I remember like tasting a white chalky rock, and like, it went back to elementary school, that like, but I'm like, I'm here, I have to.
But I wonder, you know, so one of the common tropes about being a sommelier or being really into wine is that it's all BS, right? That like, like notes of leather, you know, and then like people make fun of that.
I actually feel that way too sometimes.
That's true, but I'm kind of wondering, so you're saying it's difficult for people to identify tastes or smells alone, but I wonder if that can improve, because honestly, like things like lychee, which is a very distinctive smell and taste, once you know it, it's unmistakable.
Yes.
So I think there maybe are some unmistakable elements that come out in wine, but I wonder what the performance is of people that are trained to be able to identify these things without the other cues, right? Maybe we have the capacity to do it.
I think the first thing to realize is that we all grow up tasting and eating different things. Americans grew up on milk and Coca-Cola, and like something that the Japanese didn't grow up with. And you know, it's wild how our bodies, as we grow and what we consume, and memories and things like that are consumed or not consumed, we develop this like Rolodex in our minds of these things, and it's like this. Our brains are these like, you know, connect the dots machines, and over time, like I've been tasting wine for over 20 years, and I still have trouble like picking things out sometimes. It's never been like my forte, you know. And then when I watch like sommelier types that are like on unnamed, you know, Netflix shows of people wearing suits, and you see the like sort of pretense that can be involved with some of the elevated aspects of wine. I'm feeling my body even feel like with like a blushiness, because I take a lot of passion in what I do, but I sort of take a more like soulful, like hippie side of in order to know wine, you need to go to these places and meet in the culture behind it and see the places, eat the food. There's so much more rich things in between that and the culture and the people. But like when people like do the like, when people put wine up on a pedestal and treat it like this thing, when people are like, strawberry rhubarb, whatever. Like, you sense that. Like, not everyone else is going to sense that. So I never, when I talk about wine, I like to talk about like actual sensations, like texture, like acidity and tannin and like places. And I've got friends that talk about wine in like the most colorful ways that talk about like flavor gnomes and like tangerine helicopters over a sea of seaweed. Like, it's just, there's no wrong way to talk about wine. And all I ever attempt in my influence with wine and talking to people is to not be afraid of it, and like that it's this whole world like of like vacations that you can go on. Like, want to taste it, like cook something from Sicily, buy a Sicilian wine and try it out. Like, I don't want people to be intimidated by wine because they think they don't know what something is supposed to smell like. And I can understand how like, people, if they don't know how to process it, they get shy. But I want it to be the other way, instead of like leaning away, like leaning into it.
Yeah, we all have our own vocabularies. I think you're absolutely right about that.
I feel like you two should pair up because my experience, I mean, I grew up in the countryside in Vietnam, so they have wine that is like plum wine or hard wine. But the way the people experience is either you have to drink with food, like nobody drink alone, like that's the rule that nobody drink alone. You need to drink, and there should be food on the table, some small assembly plate. But if you are hardcore, then people have to recommend this is the drink, this is the food, and they pair together.
Yeah.
Like, that's what you do in the wine tasting event also. But what if you create a wine label, but then you say, this is, you want to go to this restaurant, get this, exact this, and try it together.
They do belong together.
I think it's interesting to like, I guess, think about what people are pursuing when they're like tasting and smelling things. So I'm a very like texture oriented person. And so I have trouble just eating soft things, and I need there to be like pointy things. I think pointy can be like a physical thing, like a chip, but it can also be just like a sensation and a flavor. Like things can taste too smooth, and I don't like that. And like the easiest example, like being just something that's kind of like bland, regardless of like the physical texture, is just like too like blah, literally. And then there are things where like I love mezcal, and it's like my favorite spirit because it's so smoky, and it's like, oh my God, someone captured such an ethereal, like elusive thing in a liquid, and then I get to put that thing in my body.
There are a lot of secrets in mezcal too, so I'm with you 1,000%. There's so much information beyond the smoke, and there's no words for any of it. It's endlessly fascinating.
It is.
Yeah, very good.
I love that. I feel like what you're describing is a form of synesthesia because you've got this association between texture and taste. Is it true of smell as well? Can you describe the texture of smells?
Sometimes, I'm not gonna tell y'all my whole life story, but I guess what my experts would call OCD, and it's very taste and smell linked. And I can only eat and drink in certain settings. If there's like a persistent smell that is going along with something that I'm about to try to taste, like it just cannot happen. And then I just would rather starve and have to smell certain things while eating certain things.
I would like to know how you feel about durian.
I love it.
You do?
Amazing.
You do? All right. Because that's like the experience of my life that has had the strongest distinction between the taste and the smell.
That goes back to that thing too.
Yeah. I think it's like an onion. It's like sweet oniony, like
rotting
musty.
onion.
But I think once you have tasted it, I think it begins to smell the way that it tastes.
There's a switch there. Absolutely, the first time I had it, I didn't like it, and then I started to really like the smell, which I thought was awful before. Yeah, it's this weird There's something psychoactive about durian, I think. Yeah. So, not to change the subject, but we've been talking about familiar things or comfortable places, but I think oftentimes what cuisine is trying to do is to push people into points of surprise, right? I think part of your residency is about familiarity for you, history, or identity, but I'm curious, Stephanie, about how you think about surprising people, right? Putting people into an unexpected space.
Well, the way that I cook is, very comforting. And, when you think of food, it's always, I would say always, tied to a memory of your childhood or something that you tried one time when you were traveling. It was so amazing. You're trying to get home and it's not the same, and you're like, I have to go back then. But I always think of trying to make the same thing differently. Like, who has tried like a grilled cheese with a tomato soup? Like, why can't we make a cheese soup with, a tomato sandwich? Like something so surprising. You may look at a dish and say, hey, like, what is this? This cheese soup, what is this? But then when you try it, your taste buds are immediately like, holy crap, I swore when I was a kid. Like, and just those surprises, like, may throw you off. Like, this dish, I don't want to try it. Like, it does not look good. But when you try it, or if you have the courage to, take that first bite, you immediately fall into the trap of like
to rewiring.
Yes, yes, definitely. And it's always about playing into the taste buds and playing into visually what people see on the plate. Because that's the first thing that you do see when you make a bowl of food. Like, it's the colors, it's the textures, it's the plate you put it in. So that's definitely something.
Do you ever try and hide the surprises by the way that you plate something? Like make it look like it's like appealing, but then it's like they taste it and like, whoa.
Like what is this? Yeah. So that's one of the reasons why I named my residency here at Waveful Fried Green Tomatillo, because I realized, moving out of the West, that many people are not familiar with tomatillos, and they are the cousins of tomatoes. And they're tart, they're very delicious. You can eat them raw just like a tomato, and they're underrated. And oftentimes people will again see a tomatillo and say, this is unripe, or this is a green tomato, and it's totally different. And just treating a tomatillo the same way you would treat a tomato, by frying it in some cornmeal and some egg and milk mixture and frying it up and putting it on top of some amazing chicken grits, some like pans and some stuff like that, like, can really change someone's view or their taste buds. Like, hey, this is a tomato, cool, I'm gonna eat it. Wait, backtrack, this is actually something totally different, but in the same family, that you can kind of work your way up to trying different and new ingredients that you may not even think of. So when you go to the store and you look at tomatoes and you see right next to tomatoes, you see tomatillos, you'll say, hey, I think I'll grab a few, look up a quick recipe and try it myself.
Yes.
And it's all about trying different ingredients and really, really trying to understand that all this food is related in some way. It does not matter if you think, hey, this is not related to this. It all comes from the ground. It all comes from some place that people are making with their hands. And essentially, that's what we should all be aware of. The link between community and food.
Yeah, of course.
I think about this a lot when I go to a place like Jungle Gyms, and it's got all the different vegetables. And I feel like it's such a potent image of evolution, that these are like, this is the same plant as this one. It's the same plant. Like, the seed structure is the same. It's just slightly, it's pokier in this one. Oh, this one has, like, the difference. I think about this a lot with kiwi fruit, dragon fruit, lychee, and there's some other one where it's where like the dragon fruit has the pink skin with a green kind of things coming off.
But the DNA is like only slightly different. Is that
Right,
what
and
you're
you
saying?
cut it open, it's white fruit with black seeds.
Yes.
And then a lychee is like a white fruit with a big black seed in the stone, but it's got that kind of dragony texture, pink and green skin on the outside and green. And then a kiwi fruit is brown with a fuzzy on the outside, but it's got green with the center of white and that same kind of seeds. Like, this is the same fruit. And just the textures are sort of similar, the flavors are slightly different, but it's clearly the same. They're all related to each other. They just exist in different parts of the world. And all the stories of the people who live in those different parts of the world, and the preparations of those things.
Yeah, that's how grapes work too. Like the grapes show the travel of how people like took the vines and would go from one place to another. And then like grapes even develop names based on like the person that crossed the two varieties, and people cross them for different reasons to make them work better in a place. But like, yeah, you can drink wines that come from like native places, like where like that grape like goes back to that place in history, but then you can trace like the way things move through history. Like the Balkans is a really fascinating region. At one point it was all just Yugoslavia, but like when you start tracing like the history, like boundaries and like how like things like language and religion and like and food, like all sort of commingle, it's pretty fascinating how all these things develop together and slightly change, you know. Michael Pollan, I think, wrote a really good book about, what was it called? The Botany of Desire. How like we all sort of evolve around these things, and like how the relationship is very mutual between like the apple has evolved because of us, and like we've evolved because of the apple, things like that. It's fascinating.
There are also two similar books by someone named a historian, Charles Mann. The first one is called 1491 and the second one is called 1493. And it's essentially like a pre-Columbus and post-colonization history of like the journey of food. And here was cuisine globally before all of this like massive globalized trade, and then where it is now. And by the time you get to 1493 and towards the end of the book, it's just very clear, like you have people fighting over like ownership of foods, but it's like at this point, everyone is just taking, you know, peppers and tomatoes and transformed them and also made them fit, you know, their worldview and global perspective. And I've thought about things like chocolate. I don't really like sweets, so I just, for most of my life, assumed that I did not like chocolate. And then I started spending more time in Central America and also eating North African food. And I'm like, people use chocolate in savory dishes, and this is just how it was supposed to be.
Why have you been keeping this?
Like this was the OG chocolate. It was just so much better. Sorry to all the Cadbury fans.
Well, I think there's an interesting link here between memory and place and identity and food, because food cultures are some of the most resistant parts of any part of the world to the kind of homogenizing forces. You know, I'm thinking about, for example, France, which just decided French is going to be the language, an obliterated language, and many aspects of culture associated with those languages. But now they fiercely defend their food culture, and it's this resistance to being homogenized. You see the same thing in China, you see the same thing in Latin America. Unfortunately, I think that we don't see that as much in the US, but we're seeing that come back. But there was this scorched earth situation that happened with food culture in the US that really took many of those indigenous foods away from us, and I've been really excited to see the resurgence of kind of indigenous food culture here.
It's a huge can of worms because there could be so much pride involved in like native things like that. But what we're talking about too is how important diversity is and how that allows for like so much more exciting things to happen. You know, I'm like in like Chicago, New York, or something like a bigger major city, and I hear about like there's an Argentinian who's cooking like Vietnamese food in a Mexican neighborhood. I'm like, I want to go to that restaurant. Like, it's like,
Yeah.
And then when you see people like trying like certain singular cuisines, I understand how that can be and political, and it's like it's a big can of worms. You know, there's a white chef in Portland, the Pak chef. I can't remember his name right now, but he sort of got like a lot of flack in the past few years. People would write things like, you know, like white appropriator, and like he's basically Thai. He spent his whole life in Thailand. He lives in Thailand with his wife. Like he's like a shepherd of that cuisine in a way, and like then people start pointing fingers, and there are ways to look at American cuisine as like a really important melting pot, but you know, when you look at other native cuisines, you know, where things come from, it's important to, I guess, communicate that transparency, how like where people borrow from, and I think food should be this completely clear palette, like you should be allowed to do anything. And that like puts a pressure on the word authentic, which I try actually to not use that word very often, because if someone's borrowing from multiple places, like they're being authentic to themselves. I think it's something that should be shared completely and openly, and as an exploration, without fear of like.
I definitely have thoughts on how that should be done, but in dishes themselves, I think that there are stories of stance and collaboration. Like, for example, I'm a Black person from the South, and like I was born here, but my whole family is from the Deep South, and we were brought here via the transatlantic slave trade. And a dish that I just like, the things that I've grown up eating, I love grits with okra and like fried ham, and it's delicious. And then in all of those things, like you have pigs that were brought over from Europe, you have corn, which is indigenous to the Americas, and okra, which Africans braided into their hair, the seeds, to like bring those things over on ships with them. And so that is more of a just people being like, what is here, and what are we going to eat, and what are we going to make with it? And now that is just something that I grew up eating, and it's just so indicative of the American South and what was going on in those spaces. And it wasn't great things, but the food is good, and I'm going to eat it. So.
Yeah. There's a tension point here between honoring and respecting the past, and then also telling your own story moving forward, which I think requires this openness of choice, but respect choice, while at the same time, paying attention to how these are linked to people's identities and what they mean to those individuals and communities. Yeah, it should be a conversation, I think.
Well, and also, like, this idea of cultural appropriation and the way that it, like, experimenting with foodstuffs and having this example that you brought up of this white man who lived in Thailand and who's cooking and doing all these things and moving here and is like, you know, cooking these foods here. But there also are already so many Thai people who are living in the United States, and they're also cooking this food. And so it's very interesting that this person kind of gets raised up as the ambassador of Thai to the States. That, you know, ignoring as other populations are doing the food. And that gets linked to how much people are willing to pay, like for restaurants, you know, what kind of food gets read as the quote cuisine, and what gets read as like street food, and you know, so that history of you know, of race and racism is wrapped up in so many ways.
Exactly.
Go ahead.
Sorry, what was your name?
Cassandra?
Cassandra, I love that idea, thank you. That actually reminded me of something else. So in NYU, the sociology department, there's one faculty member who actively looks at the sociology of food. And I forgot what her theory was, but it's like this hierarchy, and it's determining why do some culture and their food in America, based in America, why do some cultures' food, why are they valued more than other cultures? And for example, he took French food. My partner was French, from France, born and raised in France, and he refuses to eat French food in America because he is just so disgusted at the prices of it. And we'll go to a French restaurant, or we'll look at the menu outside, and there's a croque madame, which is basically a grilled cheese with maybe an egg on top and some like more cheese on top. And they're selling it for $25. And he's so shocked because his grandma makes this for $2. It's something that your grandma makes you after you come back from school. Whereas there are other interviews where it's like you have cultures that have such a deep food culture, and their foods are so laborious, and people expect them to be so cheap. Like Vietnamese food is expected to be extremely cheap. Thai food, Chinese food, Indian food. And why is that? And one of the ideas they brought up was immigrants. A lot of these immigrants who come to America, they didn't have a lot of money, or like whatever they did, like people saw them as like low income. And this idea, even though they're like immigrants, they're coming in and they're like making money, and like people are building generational wealth, we're still seen as like our food is cheap. It's good, but they still see our food as cheap.
And get upset and try to raise the prices unless it's someone else saying that they went to go study the thing and now they're
It is so well, because in the wine world, a lot of times the imported wine feels like it's like the French Bordeaux or whatever. That's like elevated, but essentially, like in these little hamlets of France, like these are like farmers, like they're like rednecks or something. I don't want to say the wrong word or anything, but like they're just like farmers that live in a village and they make something for their village. And it's the idea of importing things, taking it and bringing it, that is where things get like put up on these pedestals. But like, you're right. Like, I mean, some of the like immigrant food of America is like the most delicious food you can possibly eat. And it's like, why is it cheaper? Like in some ways, like it's more exciting food. Like if it's more exciting, like,
and skill intensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think part of being first generation, my mom's refugee, I'm Bolivarian. One of the challenges of being in between is, especially in the culture topic, because I don't like to take a side in terms of how we talk about the politics of things. So I'll give an example. With Vietnamese food. My family runs a restaurant. It's downtown, and my brother just told me he raised the bowl to $17. We factor in inflation, and then you want to pay employees as high as you can, so close to $20. It's going to be $17 an hour for a bowl. The challenge now is you come to a restaurant, you don't see Vietnamese people. Vietnamese people will say, that's so expensive, I'm not paying $17 for a bowl of that. And my brother's sitting there like, well, I want to pay my employees a living wage, and I also don't want to be, as the second generation, I don't want to just be another mom and pop restaurant. I want to be on the bigger plane. And so as it relates to identity and all these things, it's just this challenge. And you know, you have these things with race, you have things with class, you try to do things like pay a living wage. I don't know how else relates to sensory experiences, but identity, food, it's just different. And I know I'm seeing all of this play out. I come to this without any sort of fiction that I know what is true. I see this, it's just what it's like to be in America as a second generation person. You're just navigating these waters all the time.
Well, and as a restaurant, you're paying attention to your customer base, and there has to be a valence, like a kind of a gut sensation when you realize that you've priced yourself out of the community that actually knows that food well and is culturally connected to that food. And what does that mean? And is that okay? There's a lot of complexity to navigating those waters.
Like last thing though, we didn't price it out. Like, I grew up seeing my friends do the nail salons. They got money.
Yeah.
They just don't want to spend it. So it's just like, I don't know what to say.
I have one perspective because I grew up in Vietnam, so I still have my whole family still living there, so I can see how the mom and shop business there kind of like adapt to changing even COVID, they survive through it. So I think this is more like a larger scale of how the whole US kind of works. McDonald's never go out of business. Drive-thru never go out of business for now because the American was built for the drive-through structure, franchise drive-through. Mom and shop, you go out of business. It's like day-to-day basis, you can see one get closed. So it's like, I don't know, but let's say a mom and shop in Vietnam, they can actually become very, very big. If it tastes good, people come and more like where I grew up, there will be like 8 million people. Now we have 13, I don't know, unofficially 20 million people packed in the space of probably downtown Cincinnati, New York, and Hawaii. Yeah, very dense. It's very dense. But that means it's like, yeah, like you pick up a phone call. Just one guy would have like a giant like box behind his motorcycle, delivers probably for 50 people in an apartment building complex. So it's like very efficient. It's very efficient. Like, and you know, I mean, your family runs some restaurant, right? It's scale. It's all scale, right? And sometimes you pay a lot of attention to decorate one beautiful dish. Sometimes you know that all you need to do is making 1,000 gallons of broth. Then it's just scale it up. Yeah. So, I don't know. It's a problem that cannot be solved, but I just feel like if U.S. is maybe slowly more toward some infrastructure that more friendly to mom and shop, like mom and pop shop, than just a drive-through franchise. I mean, it's so easy if it's like then and people can just maybe have like right now I saw that downtown Cincinnati, like people on like and just do like grab pop. I mean, that's effective. But really, if you move to South Carolina, my wife, she's never ordered chicken here, so she orders chicken every single week in South Carolina because it takes 5 minutes. 5 minutes for her phone call, receive chicken. Imagine the 5 minutes, you pick up the phone call and just, yeah, chicken in the door. If the US can build the infrastructure, that's a good fun. And all that chicken and come $10, then it's like everybody is like happy, get paid well. Yeah.
Wow, this has been really a fun, wandering conversation tonight. So we do have one last surprise, or maybe it's not a surprise. We've advertised it. We do have a drag show from Smoking Queers. It's going to happen up here. This was not just for Ashley-Devon. This was actually set up also for the drag show. So I think what we'll do is we'll just wrap this conversation here, but I want to offer the people that we invited here sitting with us any final thoughts, and then we'll move to that. So anybody can go. I don't need to put anybody in the hospital. But any last things that just you want
boy, it's hard to summarize this conversation.
Yeah. Trying to bag on
Okay,
those.
some drone chicken too.
I just want to go back to what you were saying about like the Deep South and the South End, like the food that you grew up eating. I want to just say, like, there's a difference between appreciating and appropriating food, and like we can always love food and like be involved with the history of food, and that's like the number one thing that we should all be involved in. You know, like, how is this tomato grown? Like, how did this tomato get here? You know, like, we should always think of those things because, you know, it truly does matter. And we can definitely learn from, like, where corn comes from, you know, like, hey, like, we use corn this way, but, you know, in the South, it's used for grits, it's using tortillas in Mexico, you know, it's using porridge. So, like, oftentimes it's something that we can think of, and also think of how other people use it, and kind of, okay, well, I appreciate the way that, you know, these people use corn, and I want to just use this in my cooking and kind of learn from that in that way, because food does tell stories, and, you know, we can always learn from food, definitely.
I might read something from, it's actually the preface of a zine that I wrote a couple of years ago. If you check out my website, there's a digital version. The print version, it's not available anymore. But just 2 quick paragraphs. One way to make sense of wine is simply to take its sensory elements, sight, smell, taste, and integrate the contextual background of the wine to a whole tactile experience. Great food and wine pairings certainly help with this. Did you know that your sense of smell interacts directly with the parts of the brain that are responsible for memory and emotion? For me, a simple whiff of a wine can summon a former visit to an old cellar from many years past. The dank and musty smells, the percussive, reverberating bubbling of fermentations, visible layers of fuzzy, dark molds and yeasts thriving. This conjunction of the senses can create meaningful, lasting memories. I encourage you to keep your mind open to all types of wine. It's not just about the taste. Each bottle is a chance to take a vacation to that place without ever having to leave where you are. Cook a recipe for dinner that has the ingredients or history from the same place as the wine you bought. If you begin to follow wine down any of its endless paths, you'll eventually see its mystical abilities to show you how we're all connected. This is what keeps the cycle going after nearly 8,000 years. It's greater than wine alone. It's about everything in between. Wine is special because it holds us together. Hopefully that makes some sense.
Yeah, Julia.
Sure, I'll make something up.
AKA Paula, yeah.
Yeah, no,
Your name is Paul. So what is it about taste and smell that seems so linguistic and is deeply evocative of memory?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, there are brain interconnections, right? And so there are strong interconnections between memory centers and sensory centers. So that's part of it.
And emotional, yeah.
Yes, and emotional. Yep.
And it's something, it's a depth metaphor, but it's almost pre-verbal or pre-symbolic.
Yeah, and early in evolution too, right? So, yeah, early in evolution. Yeah, I mean, that may be, because you asked about comments, and one thing that's been percolating in my head, and this is because I do clinical work with people who have a variety of different neurologic problems, and so I was just thinking how closely we're all tied to olfactory experience and taste experience and eating. And imagine if we didn't have that, and how profound it is for people who lose their sense of smell. And in COVID, we've heard so much about this, right? But we also see it in dementia and all kinds of other conditions where people don't have these experiences anymore, or don't have them the way that we're describing them. And it's really profound change in people's experience.
And that's exactly the comment I could make, because when I was active in the field, my interactions were all with people who couldn't understand the things we described here anymore, perhaps, which is even more tragic. But, so it's kind of a downer, sorry.
I know, that's what I was actually hoping I wouldn't go last. You're going to have such an uplifting discussion, and then I'm going to talk about what? Loss of smell and connection. Yeah, no,
it's a celebration of the richness that we have access to, which I think is an important reminder.
Yes.
It's not something we take for granted.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question for you, because your name is
Nate, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. My question is, you work with animals?
I do, yeah.
So I heard this metaphor that we humans can never understand the way that experience the world of echolocation, because we rely so much on vision.
Yeah, there's a famous philosophy paper about this quandary. Yeah.
So can you make a comment on maybe just what is the gap between, let's say, our experience smell? We always have to compare with something, and we have to use words that relate to color and texture, and we actually don't smell very well. Don't smell very well. What's your comment on maybe how can we best relate the experience of us smelling to, let's say, a dog? smell it.
Yeah, yeah. You know, oftentimes we do this in quantity or magnitude. Oh, dogs can smell, 100 times better than us. I think that really misses out on how different their world, a sensory world is. Every animal sensory world is unique. They're integrated differently in the brain. For example, famous smellers like honeybees, they go around smelling the world, they're finding flowers, they're using color and smell and shape, even electromagnetic forces. It's integrated in a part of their brain called the mushroom body, which brings it in together with taste and with vision, etc. And what is that like? There's no way for us to know, right? I think it's very difficult for us to know. We can know the basic facts about it. They can smell this, they respond to that, etc. But we'll never really know what that experience is. But I can tell you one thing, it's absolutely true that their world of smell and taste is deeply interwoven with memory and also with other senses. So our striving to describe things based on texture and color is something that I think we would have in common if honeybees were chatting with each other about a scent memory. They would probably be wrapped up with all of these other things.
And the stamen was so smooth.
And they thought they were
smooth.
They thought there were spiky colors around where it was never Well, I guess this brings us to you.
Cups of flowers.
Any parting remarks, Ashley?
No. I don't like to try to be too poetic in the moment. I don't know. I love food.
Says the poet.
I love eating, and I am thankful that I still have my sense of taste and smell. I thought about that during the pandemic. In this room, I was slightly freaked out. So I was like, oh, I don't have my mask on. And I thought, it sounds dramatic, but I am dramatic. If I couldn't taste and smell anymore, that'd just be a wrap. There's literally nothing else. And I feel like people who have long COVID, who have lost their sense of taste and smell, they have talked about losing their will to eat, which in a way is directly losing a will to live. So I'm thankful for what I got.
Yeah. Well, a good note to go out on is thankfulness.
Can I have my closing remarks?
Absolutely, an honorary member of our discussion.
I think this entire discussion, especially that last bit about thinking about the world of animals and sensing, is a wonderful science fiction writing prompt.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So we'll take that and run with it.
All right. Some of you just experienced what an alloy is like for the first time, and some of you have been back many times because you enjoy this. So hopefully you'll join us for a future one. I know that some of you may need to run at this point in time. That's totally okay. But for those that want to stick around for the drag show, please do. All right.
Thank you so much.
Thanks again to all of our panelists.
Please do. Please.
That was great. That was great. Thanks.
You guys, this was so wonderful. Thank you so much. I want to say hello to Paula Shear, Megan Lumpkin, and they're talking on the phone.